There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello and welcome, cousins, to Social Contract, an all-new episode. As you may have noticed, we have our Mr. Mayor Jared back live in studio with us today, in his studio.
Good morning, good morning.
Are our houses across the country. But he's back from his adventures, and we're glad to have him back. I told everyone while you were away that you were going to come back, and I was going to be completely feral and not know how to share the screen time, because I'd just be used to just talking endlessly. But we're really glad to have him back. And we are excited also because of all the months to be away, of all the times to be away from a political podcast that you co-host. This was a rough one. A lot of things have been going on for a while on this month that has just like gone on infinitely and feels like it's been an entire year at this point. So we also
it's kind of amazing.
Yeah,
well, it was amazing to be out of the country while like the big news broke, I guess.
Yeah, he wasn't even in the country, so whatever. It's like, okay, you lose your America privileges.
I was on the beach. It was amazing. I'm just like, hilarious. Anyway.
Yeah, it must have been so great to be like, not my problem for a few days. So we're also super excited to tell you that this is, and I just checked, and it's working. This is our first ever Twitch broadcast, live Twitch broadcast. So we are live on YouTube currently and Twitch. We used to broadcast on Twitter live as well, but we stopped doing that because they restricted live streaming to premium accounts, and we thought that was extortion, and we're not going to give Smealon any money. So now we're just like, okay, cool. We'll just go where everybody else is anyway, and now we're on Twitch. So you can watch us live there. You can watch us live on YouTube, and we always post after the broadcast on. It's also pinned on our Twitter currently as well. You can see it there. But we also post on goddamn, what do we even do at this point? It's Twitter. We do Tumblr. I'm drawing a blank. Tumblr, Blue Sky, and Rumble. You can also see everything, and Rumble and YouTube both have our entire archives of everything. So now that we're all caught up and ready to rock, let's say hi to the chat real quick, and then hello, Peacenix. Hello, are you time traveler too? Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And I'm going to just go ahead and turn things over to Jared to give him a chance to get out some of those pent up thoughts he's had through the episodes that he's missed. So I'm excited to hear some of his thoughts on this, because we also haven't really got the chance to talk while he's been away. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about what's going on here recently.
Oh no.
So here we are.
Screens without meaning to.
Oh, sorry. This is
Yeah, oh yeah, we've
new
got had some changes to the platform that we use, and he hasn't gotten a chance to check them out yet. So there's going to be
All right.
some
The other
technical
one,
doo-doo going on here.
the other one let me load up my screen share before like throwing it on the screen, and I probably can do that here too. I just don't know how. So
Yeah,
I'm just
you
gonna
can.
I'll
Well, yeah,
restrain
that's
that.
part of the changes that we have, but I'll tell you about that after the show. So.
I'll restrain this for now. Well,
Yeah,
I
just do what
spoiled
you
it
want
with
to do.
the got thrown on screen. I'm like I think it would be almost like nobody really needs to hear our opinion on like Biden dropped out. Do we all know? Does anybody getting that news broken to them? I don't know
Oh,
what
I
else I
gave
could.
my opinion when it happened. I was all about that opinion.
Saying like at this, but now it's like what a week and a half later. It's like we've already moved on. Like I don't
Right.
even know what to. Like, I would love to spend a lot of time talking about Kamala, but part of my point of talking about Kamala is that I don't know what you talk about with her
She's
because
got
I
no
see people.
platform.
I
There's
went on her website. I kept hearing people like she has no platform. Like, well, she has to have some platform. And then you go on her website, and the only links are like volunteer, donate, and that's
yeah,
it.
there's
That's
no
all.
platform. Unless we forget, I know I just said I was going to let you talk, but
No,
unless we forget, this is like the same woman who was constantly laughing weird like she was on drugs at every possible like public event, and that that it would say things that didn't make any more sense than when Trump talks. And now everybody's acting like she's the new messiah here. Let's not forget that that was just like 2 weeks ago. That
I
was
know,
that
right?
person. She's still that person. She's still that person now, but just with no platform and running for fucking president. So here's, and Jared, if you recall, starting at the beginning of the year when we thought we were going to have a lot to talk about starting then, and it didn't ramp up until this month, basically. Starting with the assassination attempt, we were talking about. Yeah, there was a
Oh yeah,
lot.
that happened. We didn't
A
talk
lot,
about that
man.
either.
We started talking about there was going to be a bait and switch, that we knew that they were going to let Biden deteriorate publicly. And I think what
That's why they put
happened
him at
was,
those debates.
well, yeah, I think what happened was is they just had to do it early, because I think they were going to probably try to hold out to the beginning of September and let him really go downhill and get people really riled up and scared. But then the assassination thing happened, and I think it blew their surprise. So
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think that Trump set up a fake assassination attempt on himself.
well, if he
But
did,
when
he
you,
wasn't in on it. He's not going to let somebody take a shot at his face. Even like the
that's
craziest among us would not let that happen.
like my best, one of my favorite commies, Peter Coffin, was saying on his video. It's like Donald Trump is also a huge pussy, and there's no way that he'd let people shoot at his face. Like,
100%, yes. But also, it's like nobody would.
no,
Like, no,
exactly,
like
nobody
seriously, it's
would.
fine,
Let
right? Like,
alone him.
to let somebody with a high caliber rifle shoot right at your face, and somebody is gonna die, but
Yeah.
it won't be you. So it's cool. No,
That's the thing. That's what immediately knocks out any of those, like, oh, the whole thing was fake. It's like, well, real people really did die. So, like, if it was, quote, fake, it wasn't really that fake, was it? There's definitely some weird, spooky stuff going on with, why does the Secret Service actually just suck that bad, or did they suck on purpose? Like, that's kind of where the gray area is left. Did
well,
they
if you
just
recall
intentionally
back,
send out their worst agents in
well,
hoping that something
back
would
in the
happen?
Obama times, like there was this great big blow up in the news. It's like, hey, these guys get prostitutes and they get free shit everywhere they go, and they're liars and they're fuckers and it's like, so that was going on all the way back then, that these guys just party. Guys, I mean people.
Yeah.
I'm not being,
Well, I was told they're like the crew on that one were like not outsourced exactly, but they're like a B team. It's kind of like if you buy like an airline ticket and then you see like operated by and it's some other airline. You're like, wait, what? I think it was almost that with the Secret Service, where they're like, yeah, they're like the deputies of the Secret Service.
Junior, Secret Service Junior.
I don't know. See, like, I don't know really what you add to that. We're not gonna know for a bit anything any more concrete than what we have. I do think it's hilarious how, like, now that we're doing, there have been a couple of congressional hearings with the Secret Service people, and they just say nothing.
They're
And they
like,
don't just say
"Oh."
nothing; they say nothing to questions that you're like, that should be a really easy to answer one. And like, did you ever visit the place? And there's like, no.
Sorry.
Can you tell us how many shots were fired? And they're just like, we would defer to the FBI. It's like, why can't you say that? There's like video of how many shots were fired. Why can't you even say, did you find shell casings? We defer to the FBI. You can't even say whether or not you found them? Like, you're not asking what or
Right.
where. It's like they're trying to be like, look how messed up this is.
It's something that I mentioned, which I think I was probably actually wrong about because I forgot how apathetic everyone is at this point. Kind of been forced into it, which is that when that moment happened where it's like, they were, they snapped the picture, like when he jumped back up and he's like pumping his fist and going fight, and he's got blood in his face, and then there's that picture with the flag over him. I'm like, oh man, Biden's fucking cooked. This shit is over. But now nobody cares. It's like nobody's. I mean, we're talking about it, like this stuff, and it's like it didn't actually have any great impact, except for on like the tech bros. Like they're coming in their pants about this. It's been ridiculous. But there's been so much more gone on since then that it's sort of like this zero sum game of like crap is happening that would normally be important, but it doesn't matter now because more crap is going to happen.
People have it definitely didn't move the needle on anybody, which is a point I've seen that many others have made, where it's like if you were already definitely never voting for Trump, you're not going to now suddenly want to vote for him because he got shot at. And if you're, and the opposite is also true. If you were already going to vote for him, you just go, look, here's even more evidence that they really don't want him to win. He must be this actual outsider as opposed to what he really is, which is all these people's best friends up until 2016 when suddenly he became a big deal because he didn't quite want to do every single weapons shipment that they wanted them to do. But at this point, he seems on board with all of it anyway.
Right.
So, like, what can I talk about that is happening now and not those things? Hey, Venezuela had another election, and once again, Nicolas Maduro, the socialist, won. And of course, America is very upset about this. So you get we're getting full court press, like right now, like everyone's in the streets protesting Maduro, and then like you find out that you'll hear on one hand, violent motorcycle gangs of Maduro supporters are out like beating everybody up and killing them in the streets, and then you hear violent motorcycle gangs of opposition to Maduro are out in the streets, motorcycle gangs violently killing everybody. And it's like, and then you'll see footage, and then someone's in the bottom, this footage is from 2017. And like we're in that era where it's just what is real, what is not real. Is at this point I am very disinclined to believe any of the like official US state narratives. Yeah. And rather than trying to analyze the thing that's happening right now, I mean, that election happened on Sunday, so we're now a day and a half out. And there's always a possibility in the whole shit, because if you listen to the news, they're like, Venezuela is on the precipice of toppling over. They're like, they're hanging by a thread right now, the Maduro government. They're going down. And please don't take any of this as like a direct endorsement of Maduro even. I just think that Venezuela should be able to elect whoever they want to elect, because that's how democracies work. And all evidence continually, election after election, points to these being legitimate elections, at least as legitimate as United States' elections. I'm sure you can find some screwiness. I can find a lot of screwiness in our elections, and if I say anything about it, I'm called a right-wing psychopath election denier, even though whenever the Democrat candidate loses, we deny elections fucking up and down, right? Not my president. Whatever the shit they were saying in 2016. Al Gore, oh my God, like, we've watched elections be stolen, but now you're not allowed to say it. I want to go back in time to the previous time that we tried to, by we I mean the United States government, CIA, FBI, whatever, tried to topple the Venezuelan government. This is from the Gray Zone. This is from 2030. Okay, I want to do this. I want to make it fatter. There it is. Yeah, let's... What I'm doing on my screen looks nothing like what happens in this window, and it's funny. Failed Venezuelan coup leader Juan Guaido. Remember Juan Guaido?
Oh, God.
Lands
the memes
new
about
game.
him still go around. If something happens, it's like, oh, he declares himself the winner of Legos.
That was like
this.
I think the Juan Guaido shit was like my rainbow bridge of like starting to understand things, where at the beginning of the Juan Guaido thing, I was out there like, yeah, the last legitimate elected leader of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, because his votes counted and it was a fair election for some reason, even though the same election where Maduro, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll use the same, quote, phony elections to say that Juan Guaido was legitimately elected, even though using the exact same process, these other guys are not legitimately elected somehow. Basically, when their guy wins, it was a real election, and when their guy loses, it's fake. Does that sound familiar, everyone?
Yeah, for real.
He lands new but at the end of the Juan Guaido thing, I was fully like, oh, haha, the CIA's nonsense like didn't work out. There was a couple of days there where when we really thought the Guaido thing was going to happen, where there were like trucks driving in across the border, and then you hear about Venezuelans chucking fire bombs onto the trucks and like burning the trucks down, and and that seemed to have been the end of it. It was like a one day, like an afternoon military coup attempt that
And
kind of
there was a
fizzled
lot
out immediately.
from the American media trying to make it look like it was fake and it was illegitimate and that Maduro had stolen the election again and that's what they do because it's and they really wanted you to paint him as the next Gaddafi. Like they were really working really overtime at that time to make it look fake to American audiences.
Gaddafi was
last time.
Gaddafi, and this is not me endorsing everything Gaddafi ever did or said. He was a little wacky sometimes, but Gaddafi is an example of a successful American coup. If you look at, what was it, Libya before and after our coup over there, whoa, I bet they're kind of wishing for Gaddafi at this point. Like, Libya was doing decently, like, for their conditions, and now they're a country that has straight up, like, slave markets and shit.
Yeah, and he wanted, his whole thing was wanting to make a united Africa, start their own like petrodollar, basically
the
like
afro to go against the euro.
Right. Yeah, their own. Yeah, and then the reason that coup was successful was once again painting him as like the next Saddam Hussein. It's always somebody's the next last guy, and that we had to coup.
It's always like, oh, they're bombing their own people, and I'm like, I've watched the U.S. bomb itself at least a dozen times since I've been alive. Like, when are we getting a?
And it's not a coincidence that we're always behind this, whether we're trying to we as America, I mean, America's trying to shut something down or get somebody something. And it cannot be understated that Venezuela is sitting on the like one of the richest oil deposits and one of the to the point that nobody really even knows.
More oil than Saudi Arabia.
The most gold deposit, that they haven't really even tapped into or been able to measure. There could be like an insane, like next level amount of gold there. So if you think that the United States is not involved in these coups and these smear campaigns, then you haven't been paying attention. You certainly haven't been watching our show.
If you remember our favorite guy, Donald Trump, one of the reasons they don't like him, he occasionally gets on TV and says the truth, where he's like, right, he was talking about, because Venezuela, that whole coup was happening under the Trump administration, and he was saying like, man, we were in Venezuela, they were this close, we were going to get all that oil, we were going to have the oil, and he just explicitly does that thing where he says, we were going to get their oil, and they're like, no, you can't just say that.
You're not supposed to just say it.
He's saying if I was still the president, or if they would have reelected him if you would have reelected me in 2020, I would have completed the Venezuelan coup and taken all of their oil and stuff. And it's not even quite as simple as that. That's definitely like an ingredient. It's really just part of our whole imperialist world dominating thing that we like have to do. Because it's not even for the U.S. people. It's not like we would then get the money from the oil. It's our private companies. I don't even know who owns who at this point. I was going to say BP, but I'm like, that's British Petroleum, so that's not us. But
well, whatever America does,
Shell.
Britain and Australia, are in lockstep. If we say jump, they ask how high.
They get to benefit because their companies get to bid.
Right. Yeah. So if we say show up somewhere, they show up with their, and they do what we say. And don't forget that they're also very authoritarian countries. And even though Britain tries to make it seem like, hey, we're free, this is what it's like to live free, you're full of shit is what you are, because they're as authoritarian as anybody. Australia is the same. All of our allies have that very much in common, that Japan and things like this, very authoritarian, very ready to take somebody else's shit.
So after leading a failed military coup, a failed mercenary invasion of his country, and a non-existent presidency, he did just kind of pretend to be president for a bit. He was just hanging out saying, I'm the president, listen to me.
Yeah.
Juan Guaido gets his golden parachute at an intelligence-adjacent U.S. university. Is it in Florida? Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right. So this is from 2023. It's from last year. Florida International University has appointed Juan Guaido, a Venezuelan coup leader created in the U.S. Regime Change Laboratory. This is the gray zone, if you can't tell. I'm reading from the gray zone right now. Regime Change Laboratory as a visiting professor. An engineer by training, Guaido's appointment is at the Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom, which FIU describes as a world-class independent nonpartisan think tank with a mission to advance economic and individual freedom and human prosperity. During the fall semester, Guaido will conduct 8 study group sessions, just 8 sessions, in addition to mentoring students, conducting research.
Wait. What is it conduct a study group session? Like he's not qualified to teach a class, so they had to
I don't think he wants to do that much work. I think it'd be really hard to actually do a whole, it takes you have to like write a syllabus.
Everybody that's been to college, like you know what a study group is, and that's just like literally Community. It's literally the show Community. So it's like
yeah, it's like hang out with Juan Guaido 8 times if you want.
Okay.
Like in addition to mentoring students, I mean, like I hope he's an okay engineer. Maybe he'll be helpful. Hopefully, he either speaks English or has some Spanish-speaking students he can maybe help. Conducting research and being a part of public conferences and seminars. So really, they're just like letting him hang out, and he'll be paid $40,000, which that's almost disappointing. I'd be like, come on, man, I helped you guys do a fake coup. You can only give me $40,000.
Right? Yeah. I tried to help you do a coup.
This compensation is more than FIU adjunct professors get, who are far more qualified to teach FIU students than Guaido, as they often hold master's and in most cases PhD degrees in their field. So apparently Guaido does not have an advanced degree, which, I mean, whatever. I don't care if you do or don't.
He's walking around like, I am a student.
I remember.
I'm a man on campus.
That's him getting off the plane, and it's just so weird. I do want to point out that, like, if Nicolas Maduro was this just complete bloodthirsty dictator, like, why is Juan Guaido? He just kept living in Venezuela. Like, they didn't go kill him. They didn't go. They didn't even go round him up and arrest him. They're like, sure, man,
whatever.
Go ahead. You're the president. Whatever.
Yeah, you're the president now. Okay.
And you can find video of Venezuelan citizens like finding him in public and heckling him, kind of like America style, where they find him in a cafe and then yell at him. And they don't kill him.
For a long time.
They didn't beat him to death. They didn't stab him. He's in Florida now. He's fine. He's living his best life. Bloodthirsty dictator Nicolas Maduro, who's okay with the coup leader just peacefully leaving the country.
I'm going to hang out at the college in Florida.
This is opposed to Alex Saab, a guy that we just like. He was, I mean, prove people's motivations. According to him, he was going around trying to get food for Venezuela when they were having a harder time than they are now. A few years ago, people were starving in Venezuela. Still definitely are. Like, I'm not trying to say Venezuela is this utopia, Jesus. But if you took off some of the, like, you know, all the arguments with Cuba, just apply that to Venezuela. We have insane economic sanctions on Venezuela. They're not allowed to sell oil to anybody. And then comically, once we started doing the we can't buy Russian oil, guess who started knocking on Venezuela's door? Like, immediately. Like, we will do trade with them if we have to, but it's just, it's cruelty is the point, as the libs like to say. Yeah. But anyway, Alex Saab was going around trying to get food from international places. Like, hey, we have all these sanctions. Can you send us some food? And the U.S. just detained him for like 6 years. He was eventually let out, but it's like they didn't even do that to Guaido, a guy who literally was doing a coup, or at least being the figurehead of a coup. Just trying to contrast our treatment of international, really diplomats, I guess, because it's not like he's a soldier. Guaido, I would not call a diplomat. He was leading a coup. According to Luis Vicente Leon, Venezuela's leading pollster, Guaido spent his career in the most violent faction of Venezuela's most radical opposition party, positioning himself at the forefront of one destabilization campaign after another. Leon wrote that here's the quote here, these radical leaders, referring to Guaido and his mentor Leopoldo Lopez, have no more than 20% in opinion polls. Guaido's party remained isolated because the majority of the population does not want war. Burp, 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 burp. There he is. There's a guy. When you hear about these violent opposition parties, and then you hear about violence in politics happening now in Venezuela, despite his lack of popular support in Venezuela, with fewer than 1 in 5 Venezuelans even knowing who he was at the time, Guaido was recognized by the Trump administration in 2019 as Venezuela's president. Worshipped for a time in Western media in a manner reminiscent of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Guaido's stock fell when some of his supporters were captured and killed after launching an amateurish raid into Venezuela from Colombia. That's the setting trucks on fire thing I was talking about. In an attempt to overthrow Maduro that was dubbed the Stupid Bay of Pigs. A reference to the failed CIA invasion of Cuba in 1961. And here's Max Blumenthal, who is the Gray Zone editor-in-chief, and part of why there's so much snark in these things. In Venezuelan custody, ex-Green Beret and Silver Corps mercenary Luke Denman confirms contract with Juan Guaido, says plan to kidnap Venezuelan President Maduro and fly him to the U.S. as a captive. So yeah, that's what they were trying to do. It sucks that people died, but like that's what happens when you try to militarily overthrow a government.
Right.
And don't have the support of the people to get you behind it. Like, if there really was a mass movement of people trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government from the inside, like do a counter-revolution, then where is it? Why isn't it happening? They'll say, well, it's happening right now in the streets. And it's like, I don't know, man. People are doing a riot. We do riots here. When do we get to overthrow our government?
Yeah,
we Black Lives Mattered so hard for so long.
Right, and there also, it's being seriously overestimated in the American media as well. It's making it look like you said earlier, they're showing older footage under the guise that, well, at least in the social media spheres, showing older footage and saying this is, from now, that there's tons of people out there, that they're all fighting. That's not really what's happening. There are people who are trying. They're just sort of like, let's coup. Come on, let's coup, guys. Let's coup. And then like everybody's like, no. So
you're just gonna get left holding the bag.
If you're talking from a realistic perspective, that's really what's going on.
People have seen the pattern, like they've seen what happens, and it works less and less often. I think Gaddafi and maybe in Syria might have been our last successful one. Hopefully that we don't succeed again. The CIA doesn't succeed again. I say they act without even approval, anything. No. They just do whatever they want. Yeah. Guaido's representatives in Colombia were also caught embezzling $125,000 meant for humanitarian aid. And Guaido was indicted by Venezuela's attorney general last week, accused of stealing the resources of the state-owned oil company, which is like how Venezuela makes all of its money, Petroleos de Venezuela, PDVSA, for his own benefit, costing taxpayers $19 billion. Oh no, the poor starving Venezuelans. We need to free them with these who's going to free them? These opposition leaders that are embezzling billions of state dollars that could be used to take care of All right. Guaido has meanwhile advocated for sanctions that led to the deaths of thousands of his own countrymen from starvation. As the standard bearer of Venezuela's Bolivarian revolution, Maduro, current president, has sustained popular support despite making some mistakes, winning the 2018 election with 6.2 million votes, which is 67% of the vote, compared to challenger Henry Falcon, who got 1.9 million, or 21% of the vote. Jimmy Carter, so I was going to pull this up, I'm glad he did. Jimmy Carter called the technical aspects of Venezuela's electoral system, quote, the best in the world. He said that in, I think, 2012. Launched by Hugo Chavez, a socialist who ruled Venezuela from 1998 until his death in 2013, the Bolivarian Revolution had sought to establish Venezuela's economic independence through national control over the country's oil. You see the problem here, whose revenues were used to develop the economy and uplift the poor. Through much of the 20th century, Venezuela was ruled by an oligarchy which monopolized the country's oil wealth and allowed it to be exploited by the U.S.-based multinational corporations. By 2013, when Chavez died of cancer, poverty and inequality had been reduced substantially. Literacy had increased, and Venezuela's UN Human Development Index, a composite measure of national income, access to education, and child mortality, rose from 7th in the region to 4th. U.S. hostility to Venezuela's government and support for right-wingers like Guaido stems from the threat of a good example and fear of the loss of traditional U.S. hegemony in Latin America that dates back to the 19th century. As a de facto puppet of the U.S., Guaido advocated for privatizing the PDVSA, so taking the thing that gets Venezuela its money, the thing that was rising them out of poverty, at least creating some kind of frickin' improvements for things like literacy, GDP, child mortality. And they want to just give it away.
Embargoes and sanctions, they were able to do that.
They want to give that away, which is a thing I want. I want the U.S. to nationalize our oil resources. I mean, if we're gonna f up the world, at least cut us a fudging check. That's what Russia does.
Piece of that, if anything.
Lowering the corporate tax rate and defunding social programs that greatly improve the quality of life for Venezuelans while reintegrating Venezuela with Washington-dominated financial institutions. That's all I'm reading from this one. But if you are thinking about, oh man, this is the one, Maduro has totally lost this. This is a super fake election that horrible dictator man Maduro has engineered and he's shooting everybody who disagrees. They say this every time. And the number of times it's turned out to be true so far are zero.
Right. Yes. And it's kind of strange at this point because of the idea that It's kind of strange that the United States and its allies or the CIA alone just isn't going and taking care of it. Like they're not getting the Gaddafi situation, and it's not like they care about taking the heat from it. If you want
They
to learn
do.
your history about the CIA doing things, once they realized they could blow the head off a president in the middle of a parade, it was pretty much over for them listening to anybody ever again.
These are called
So
color revolutions. If you hear the phrase color revolution, that's it. Usually called color revolutions because for a lot of them, they choose a color. They'll be like the orange blah 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 is coming. The orange revolution, the pink revolution, the blah blah. And if you want to criticize, I haven't heard his name in forever. Who's the guy who for the big, like, very rich investment man that was like a meme with right-wing people for a long time, and now it's George Soros. George Soros, a real criticism for that guy is he loves funding color revolutions, because in his mind he's like, oh, I'm saving these poor people. Maybe that's if you assume pure intentions, then he's a nice guy, which
Right.
doesn't actually matter or not. But he loves funding color revolutions. Like, I would be shocked to find out that companies he owns aren't involved or don't have interest in shaking up Venezuela.
Yeah, a billionaire messing around in another country's politics. Who would guess? Who could
When-
ever imagine?
This is just a brief the Jimmy Carter thing. When Maduro won a snap election in April 2013, he keeps winning, man. Like, they hate him so much. Like, the defeated candidate, Henrique Caprile, a participant in the 2002 coup. There's just
Yeah.
one like every 5 years
Right.
they try this shit.
Every time he gets reelected, there's a coup, and that's
It's a
the
coup.
big
Oh.
one.
And they just never work, man. They just never quite can do it. They've had so many tries. And a mob siege of the Cuban embassy cried fraud and called his supporters into the streets with backing from the Obama administration. Then you have supporters of-
Interesting.
The
We're
opposite.
both
There's an
talking about the
election.
Trump and the Obama administration meddling in the affairs of these politics and these elections.
Imagine if after any American, let's say the 2020 election, after the 2020 election, fucking pick a country. I'll do Russia because it'll make everyone the maddest. Russia said, hey, Trump supporters, I know you're really sad you lost. Here's millions of dollars worth of guns. Go do a riot.
Right.
And that happened
Yeah, it's
every
literally the same.
single election.
Yeah, you think at this point Maduro's just like, let's hurry up and get home, guys. The coup's gonna start in about 15 minutes.
They're fully prepared. They're like, well, doing it again, I guess. A year earlier, Jimmy Carter had called the technical aspects of Venezuela's electoral system the best in the world, and then pictures of supporters of the opposition throw stones during clash with police in Caracas. Blah, blah. And there's Henrique Capriles. He was the Guaido of 2013, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, he at least ran in the election. Guaido just is like, I'm the president.
Yeah, right. It's me, guys. I'm president now.
It's me, the president. Oh, there it is. There's my media source I can turn off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a couple of ways to do that now. That was when I was telling Jared right before the show is if you've been keeping score at home, every single episode that I hosted alone, I had some version of a tech problem that I was like, what now? Every time something happened. And one of the times, the first time I started having technical problems was because the streamer that we use updated like in the middle of my show. And then I get an email later. It's like, hey, we updated it for you. Cool, right? And I was like, yeah, you could have timed it a little better, but cool. We have some stuff. That's a little bit better now than we had before.
All right. I wanted to. I do have a bit of Kamala talk.
Well, it's hard to talk about it at this point because we're right at the point where she's about to find, or they're deciding if they're going to make her the nominee. And then I had thought that it was going to be Gavin Newsom, and because I thought they were going to push him forward because there was no time for people to really analyze his record, and the rest of the country outside of California weren't familiar enough with all the horrible shit that he's done, including this past week making homeless encampments illegal. And they're, we know where that's going. I've been down that road, before. You missed some of that. I guess that wasn't conversation, but me just pontificating, because obviously that's the homelessness to, I think it was in the last episode I did, the homelessness to prison, labor, pipeline that we're in now is criminalizing, there's legislation criminalizing homelessness, and then they don't have anywhere to go. So that's breaking the law. So they go to jail. So then they're free labor. It's really not.
You know who loved prison labor?
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
I want Mama Kamala is a thing I'm gonna call her that. She's Mama Kamala now.
Well, that's
Holocaust
the
Harris,
thing.
Mama Kamala.
That's the mess that we're in. We have like the lowest common denominator of candidates before she got involved, and now it's like also that. But people are acting like she's amazing just because she's like the alternative here. And then I'm
Dude,
like literally want to throw open my mouth every time I see the hashtag Harris Buttigieg
I hear
2024.
my dad, who's relatively he's like if you imagine like before our like I remember the like scared Fox News old person where they would watch Fox News and be like, oh my God, Mickey Mouse is getting murdered by Mexicans, like just the weirdest shit. You're like, what? Where did you hear? And now I'm getting that, but like MSNBC, where I'll bring up, hey, you know that like Kamala was like very proud of trying to get people arrested for what is it, truancy from school, like they were having their parents arrested from, and then I have my own parents be like, not parents, just my dad. My mom doesn't really care about the politics, but he's like, that didn't really happen, and I'm like, yes, it did. Like I can absolutely tell you that completely happened.
Yeah, and minor drug offenses as well. And who do drug crimes affect the most? Like statistically. So it's like
We're just pretending she's great. They just
yeah, and
immediately went.
one thing that she has confirmed that she did shake hands and buddy up with Netanyahu, who shouldn't have fucking been here. So I had people being like, "That's not." She said she wasn't going to meet with him, and I said, "No, she's not going to introduce him to Congress. They're meeting the next fucking day." And then they did, and they got their photo ops. And she was like, the Palestine probably shouldn't be getting hammered like they are. Also, we support Israel all the fucking way. That's my platform, guys.
Yeah, man, this is like
That's where we're at.
I keep
And everybody's
watching.
acting like this is some amazing alternative.
She's
Because we went from applesauce brain fire Marshall Bill to like a woman who just laughs at odd times. It doesn't make sense when she talks any more than Trump does. So it's but one thing though, a headline I did really like that's going around, and it's like Trump, I guess, said, well, if I don't get elected in 2024, then Israel's gonna go away. You promise? Like, is that gonna happen for real? Don't threaten me with a good time, bud. That sounds great.
So like this is I do think that Harris is gonna win. If anybody watching this is still in the mindset of, well, it's a really shitty election and they're both really bad, but overall the lesser of two evils is gonna be Harris. Like if that's where
I don't know.
you're going with it.
I'm kind of thinking that Trump is going to take it. I think that more people, because you have to factor in also the sexism and the racism. There are legitimate complaints against Kamala Harris, but there are also a lot of illegitimate or non-legitimate complaints.
It's like you're setting up my bit. I'm so happy.
Oh, well, good.
You've so perfectly matched. So here is why I think she's going to win. Not just because people whose opinions I highly respect. That's the thing. There's people whose opinions I highly respect who say both, who say, oh, there's no way. And then others who say that, oh, Harris has got it at this point. I am certain that Biden would have lost, but I think that Biden essentially gets to be, to steal this expression, like the sin eater president, where you can rationalize the vote for Holocaust Harris, who's doing the exact same thing as Joe, who was in Joe's administration, and as we definitely now know, as freaking me and you have known for a long time, Biden has not really been the president, maybe ever. So who is making decisions? I mean, the next VP, the next step down from Biden, if the buck stops at Biden and Biden is unable to receive any bucks, the buck then stops with Kamala Harris, the vice president. So to act like she just showed up like a week ago as this fresh new, who's this cool, exciting lady who we really like
she's not who she's been all this time.
Those are her policies also. And if not, why wasn't she on TV railing against them? Any bombs we've sent to Israel are absolutely as responsible. Like Kamala holds as much responsibility as Biden ever possibly could, as Congress does, as the entire delegation of ghouls that keeps voting for it.
Yeah, and we're just have been saying this all the time. It's like, nominate any idiot you want. They're upholding the same fucked up values and policies, and I'm still not voting for them.
I don't care if Buttigieg is on the ticket.
To get more savvy about third party, but there's no chance. There's really no chance.
No.
Jill Stein really says all the right things and does all the right things, which again, like you were saying earlier, it's not a direct endorsement. But she, if you wanted somebody competent and sane, then you want to go that direction. But no matter how much they get the word out, no matter how hopeful people are, third parties are not going to happen unless we have ranked choice voting in this country, and that's still a Band-Aid on a broken leg. That's not going to fix things.
This is a
corruption
good
is still going to
exit.
be corruption. It's one party, and the party is run by corporations, and that therein lies the problem. It's Reaganomics 101.
This is a good off ramp for the duopoly. Like, it is this. If you cannot yet see that class matters more than anything, and the class that controls our politics is entirely willing to work between the two parties, to work with Republicans and Democrats to get the common goals done. Like, the war funding will not stop. You will never even be offered a candidate that is even nominally anti-war. They can't even have somebody campaign lie about. It's kind of what Trump was, actually, where he's like, I'm gonna fix all these things, then he gets in and really just the same shit keeps happening.
Yeah,
Because the president doesn't actually have that much power.
Well, he got this weird reputation as being anti-war, and it's like, who is saying these things? Because obviously the people that want him want to do war. But like, who is rehabilitating his image to say he doesn't want to do war? Like, liberals? Like, where is this message coming from?
It's the forever wars, because he does campaign on it, or he will say he started no new wars. And what got him impeached? When he tried to stop a weapons shipment to Ukraine. Not because he's a peacenik, because he was trying to fuck with the Bidens, but it still happened. Well, the weapons got there eventually, but that's the reason he was impeached. Not for any of his rapey things, not for any of his like other bad, like, long list of reasons to not like Trump, not for any of his like actual crimes that I would love to see someone actually get in trouble for. Nope, it was because he didn't want to send as many weapons to Ukraine.
But just get something better out of the deal. Like, I think that's probably what it was. Maybe he made his own kind of peacenik look there, I guess, with his actions, because
he wants more money from all the EU countries to pay for NATO and all these various things.
Loyalty. He wants to. He kind of fancies himself as a mafia don, but he's just not stupid enough or capable enough to do that, because people fail to realize that those organizations are generally like hundreds of years old, started with the country basically, and have worked generationally and been handed to other really capable people who are able to do these things, not like just some moron businessman that doesn't. The thing that he really has going for him is that he's just, I think it's a personableness about him. I think that when he treats people personably, they feel like they're bros with him. And I think that's what it helped him in business, is making people think that he was broy with them, I guess.
Everybody who's in a room with him seems to come away with at least a half of a smile.
Right? Well, what made me think of that is did you see that clip of him and I guess it was Jake Paul, and they did this whole kind of like thing, and then like Trump kind of did his little thing, and they posed together, click, 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 and then Trump starts laughing and kind of slaps him on the shoulder, and everybody, and I think it's that kind of like, hey bud behavior, that makes you think that you're his friend and therefore are going to benefit from whatever he does if you show him your loyalty. And I think he probably, not to say he's any kind of genius or anything like on like social cues or or sociology, but just to say I think he probably picked that up early in his career, that if you're smiley and personable with people, that's not like a secret, like you could probably read in How to Make Friends and Influence People or something. It's like smile,
I can do
personal, slap on backs.
I like to think of myself as a relatively personable person, but it's not a mystery why. Like, it's not a mystery to me how people end up like connecting with and identifying with him. Like, I can see it. I've seen clips of him where he goes into one of the fast food restaurants and he's like doing he's not even like over trying to do a fucking stand-up set or thing. Just like a couple little and like the employees are all ha ha ha, and they'll come, and it's like young people.
And what makes me mad the most about him is he is funny, and I hate it so much. Funny. He's really fucking funny. Not like haha funny, but like when he's taking somebody down that you also don't like, and you're like, fucking stop.
There's not going to be debates. I'm so mad there's not going to be debates. We don't even get to have any freaking Kamala Trump sound bites. We get nothing fun out of this.
And they're having a meltdown right now. The whole like Republican base is having a meltdown because she said something about them being weird or something like that. It's like that.
Oh, God.
That's what's bothering you. I saw a tweet where someone was like, "It's the new N-word." No, it's not. No, it's not. So
people seem entirely reciprocal to go and have that fight about the word weird, and God, I don't care. So here's
Right.
the thing I was leading up to.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about
Yeah, that was a point you actually had.
you're talking about like, well, Kamala is going to run into like the racism and how is she going to win if there is a weird forming coalition? I'm not saying weird to be funny. There is a weird coalition that is developing, and these people definitely are weird. I don't know if you're familiar with. I just pulled up a rant. This is what Canary Mission. I was looking for like a list here. So where are we? Trivializing Holocaust, anti-Semitism. Which was the one here? Let's just go down the list. Oh, there he is. So there's this guy. You may or not have heard of. His name is Nick Fuentes. It doesn't matter who he
I've
is.
heard the name, but
He's
I try not to intermingle with the thoughts of these idiots.
He's a very popular millennial Nazi, or really Gen Z, almost like an older Gen Z. And I don't say Nazi lightly. I mean literally. He advocates for like the Aryan race and the superiority of white people. Like, where is it? These are just quotes by him. I'm looking for more recent ones, like 2022. I've heard enough about the Holocaust. The real Holocaust was Jesus Christ being crucified. Like, he does this shit just for like attention, because I don't think any of these people really believe what they're saying. But he has a relatively large following and continues to grow more of a following day by day. And pretty soon, just like how we all used to laugh at, oh, Ben Shapiro, what a freaking moron. Pretty soon you're going to see freaking Nick Fuentes on CNN doing interviews, I'm sure, because that's just how it seems to work here. I saw, all right, and where we are. So we have overview. I'm not reading really.
Yeah, I was just checking the chat. We haven't even spent any time talking about JD Vance.
JD Vance. I don't even know what to say about him. He's just like cool, a rich guy who's gonna be like, there he is. Here's the establishment man.
Like the moron who made moron stuff and then got popular for being a moron.
So he's talking about white genocide, how the Jews are causing white genocide. You know what our problem is? This is the quotes from Fuentes, YouTube. You know what our problem is? The fertility rates. We need to be making more beautiful white Christian babies. Enough is enough. The problem is all the Muslims coming into Europe. Like, this is the guy we're talking about here, Nick Fuentes. That's the kind of shit he says for attention on YouTube,
no,
and it works.
Confusion there. JD Vance didn't say that yet. This was Nick Fuentes.
No, this is Nick Fuentes. I'm sure you're gonna end up hearing more about him than you ever wanted to. So here we got, where is it? Boom, here we are. So this guy, logo dateless. He's a bit crass, but he knows what the hell he's talking about on a lot of things. Good communist guy if you want to learn about communism. But so he also seems to be uncannily good at he, like 3 days before Biden, he's like, all right, they're gonna drop Biden and the Ukraine war at the same time, and they didn't drop the Ukraine war. I don't think. I guess I don't know. Does anybody talk about it anymore?
It's kind of petering out. There's just nowhere more for it to go. At this point, there's nothing else can be done, or there's a lot that can be done. It's just that America has completely lost interest in it. Nobody wants this money spent this way. We didn't get the return that we thought we were going to get on it. It became too expensive. Zelensky kept saying, "Give me more, give me more, give me more," and then everybody got tired of it. So it lost favor pretty quick.
So he's there, and it almost seems like a joke, because if you know who Nick Fuentes is, it's like, I'm so hyped for the inevitable Nick Fuentes endorses Kamala Harris moment, and that's quote tweeting like you were talking about, the Kamala Harris refuses to attend Netanyahu's speech, blah, 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 whatever that is. And then that was on July 22nd, and where are we? We have a thing of, what is this?
We're on July 76th now.
But we have some random person who's tweeting the picture. It was that collage of all the different people that Kamala got put in prison for no reason, or like their sentences extended unfairly. Yeah, right. It's like, vote for Kamala if you want black men in prison. And then quote tweeting it is Nick Fuentes saying, okay. It's happening, people.
That's not in no defense of him or his thoughts at all. It's like that's what we were talking about at the top of the hour. Like, let's not forget that top cop moniker actually means something and did not change when Biden stepped down and she became like they act like she is some changeling different person. That did not happen. She is a bad person and always has been. It's just in different ways than Republicans, but they all uphold the same exact, exploit people to turn them into slaves to make money by turning them into prisoners. Both parties would support that wholly.
Both parties support it, and one party is more effective at actually implementing it.
Right.
And I think more and more people, especially Gen Z or young millennial Nazis, such as Nicolas Fuentes, are starting to realize that, you can actually get more of this shit done with the, quote, blue side than even the red. Because when the red side has any kind of nominal influence, everybody starts paying attention and gets real mad, and then they protest and shit. But
Yeah, but these Democrats are able to slip the exact same policies through, worded a little bit differently, and they still get what they want, and it's all corporate driven. And that's, there's no coincidence here that the prison industry is primarily privately owned and is major donors to politics and major influencers to how elections go and things like this. That is not something that's just like, oh, also at the same time, it's a coincidence. It's not. It's definitely part of the plan here, and that's the whole, idea that you can get further along with the Democrats who are going to just kind of do things in a stealthful manner because they'll come out and be like, oh, Black Lives Matter, gay rights. Also, we're putting everybody in prison. And then if the Republicans they fail at that messaging that just kind of they just come out and do it. And then everybody's like, hey, that was bad. It was bad. Don't do that. So that's where, you're not incorrect in that assessment. It is easier to get further, even though it looks like that they don't want to govern and that they want to they kind of just languidly sit around and think about things. And we kind of ran out of time this hour to talk about it. We wanted to talk a little bit about the whole dust up about the Project 2025 thing, which we'll do that next week. Assuming that there's like no whatever fresh hell happens that we have to dominate the story with. But, essentially we both see that as just a money grab, because if you're a person of color, if you are a woman, if you are a gay person or a trans person, if you have ever been a student, if you have any debt, if you have ever had a job or have one now, then you have been a political bargaining chip for longer than you've even been alive. So these things that they're trying to say that are, oh no, the badness is coming and only one party wants to do it, that's horseshit. The badness has been here all along, and nobody that needs any help is getting any help, and the corporations are getting richer, and they're using these stooge puppets of that's why we have the worst candidates running for president in a lot of local offices too, because they get people not that will do a job, not that will stand up and do something well or really change things for the better, but to earn these corporations that are giving them money to get them back money and power, and that's where we are, and that's not going to change, and I honestly don't have an answer for that other than what I've been saying all along, which is that forming unions outside of labor and starting to get people more connected with each other to say, hey, this is horseshit, we've got to do something different. So
I mean, if we think about what fascism actually is, like our definitions of like what is the difference between just fascism and like someone saying something mean? It's like the blending or the use of the violent use of the government to re-entrench corporate interests. Capitalism continues to fall apart over and over because it's not a tenable system. It's not self-sustaining. It inevitably will fall apart. And your options for sustaining it are either population reduction of some kind, because it ends up the math equation gets tilted too far in one direction, where it's too many people, quote unquote. Their overpopulation is bullshit, but there will be, quote, too many people for like the economy to support at wages being so low, where if suddenly like 20% of your population disappeared overnight, your economy would be fixed temporarily until once again the whole thing sets up again. So like, what are the ways you can do that? You can do that either through big wars. World Wars I and II were inarguably for those reasons.
We're waiting for a virus to wipe out like a tenth of the population.
Your other options would be something like degrowth policies, where, or quote, energy reduction, where you have people use less energy, meaning die. Like people in various countries that have not as many resources, or just poor people here in the U.S. will inevitably die from like forced restrictions on energy use.
Or you can stop giving them benefits and monetize them by making them prison laborers.
You can kind of do, like all of it at once. We have at the same time, we have policies that Kamala Harris was popularizing, industries that she was helping shore up as Attorney General, as Chief Prosecutor of California, the prison labor industry. Now you have the Supreme Court illegal criminalizing homelessness, and then you have Gavin Newsom. We're going to kick, like, you see how this all kind of synergizes with itself, how it's like, how do we get more literally free labor, because, labor's fighting for, we're getting tiny little increases and raises, and that has to be smashed down. If you actually wanted to do fascism, like by the book fascism, not put on a brown shirt and look like a Nazi fascism, like, the melding of corporate and corporate and government interests to essentially reduce the population and force capitalism to keep working.
Better to
This
do
would
it
not be the worst
that's
course to take.
Yeah, that's what the Democrats can do. They're like sort of the path of least resistance because
We
uh,
just assume what they do is good for some reason.
right. I don't understand where they got that idea, but like here's the thing. Like, okay, so you had Trump come out a day or two ago with a statement that said like he wanted to give federal immunity to cops, which essentially means like do what you want and your qualified immunity is it's on the table. You're totally fine. And he said that kind of stuff before. Kamala Harris literally has done this. She has done this in her career. She has greased the wheels for cop unions to make sure that cops get what just happened in this last assassination of a black woman again in her own house by a cop that literally had visible white supremacist tattoos and then said to her, I'm going to shoot you in your fucking face, shot her in her fucking face, and then giggled about it at the end of the video. Like, this is not just going to stop because red or blue is happening. Even though he came out with the messaging and said, I will make sure that it's allowed. And then she's just like, no, ha ha ha, tennis shoes, no, that. But she then signs the legislation anyway to protect cops, to make sure that they're good, because she is a cop. This is how she got. So she actually has the experience. He has the talk. She has the experience. And for whatever reason, they get the better reputation because, I don't know, they're cutesy about it or whatever, slap a BLM sticker on something and say, no. But that's where the thing is like, so you're really not going to, there's no division there. And that's what we're always just pulling our hair out about as leftists, as podcasters, as commentators. We're always saying it's like, they're the same. They stand for the same values. They're upholding the same values. And it doesn't matter who you pinball into these positions. They, as a party, as a group, are the same and holding the same values. They just have different routes to it.
A system is what it does, and if what the system does is this, you can't keep coming at me saying, oh no, we're trying so hard to do the opposite of that. Just give them more and more power in the form of your vote. So I have
vote so hard. You got to vote so hard.
I know, right? It's like
the most important election of your life.
Why do we have to pretend? So she's running, she's VP, and we know Biden doesn't have a brain, and they're telling us what they'll do if they get reelected. And I saw it was like the first 100 days we'll do blah, blah, blah. It's like you have more than 100 days left in power right now. Why aren't you doing any of it immediately?
And there's so many good faith things they could do right now that would win the election right now, but they're not going to do it. Like legalize cannabis, wipe out a bunch of debt, do something right now, something in good faith right now would be so easy to do by executive order and would win so much favor. If you just looked at, they have these statisticians, they have these analysts on each of their teams that figure out what is the most popular thing, regardless of political ideology, what matters most to people, what this and that. So pick one of these issues that that conservatives and liberals like give them money, wipe out some debt, do something that both of them want, do it by executive order. Even if the Trump did come in and take it away, it would still be a good faith gesture that would almost guarantee that she would win without having to do anything. She doesn't even have to have a platform.
They're about to prove to us that they can win without having to do jack shit, because I think Kamala's going to win. And then what's the lesson? We can do less than nothing for our voters, and that somebody will still come out and vote for us.
Right.
The only result,
what Trump did last time, it was essentially less than nothing. And then that people were it was him that they wanted to, because they thought, oh, he's a billionaire businessman, and that means money for us too. And that was the exact same mentality. He didn't do shit as far as saying I'm going to do this, that, and the other. They did when they got there, but the point is that it's the same strategy of I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to pretend to do anything. It just pick me, or it's your fault. Pick me or it's your fault.
I do think that trusting the polls is a big mistake, especially after what we've seen for the last few of these elections. But according to Newsweek, Kamala Harris is now more popular than Joe Biden or Donald Trump have been at any point in the 2024 election cycle, according to a new survey. 50% have a favorable view of Harris, while 46% have unfavorable view. But skipping down here, I'm looking at like the 12-point swing in net approval was primarily driven by a surge in Harris's popularity with Democrats from 80% to 89%. I'm like, who the hell are these 80% of people that approved of her before?
People not paying attention just because she's on the Democrat side. It's really what it comes
2020, she got like no votes. She
No.
ran for president before, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, no.
down. No. Sit down. No.
What changed?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, if she didn't have all this baggage coming in, like, let's say she got there honestly on her own, she was a candidate running, she come in, she got the votes, whatever, like without, being handed the keys here, like she still does not uphold, it's still Republican values at the end of the day. It's like there are no real fundamental differences between the parties, because you can't be like, oh, well, she completely disagrees on that, because literally the only thing she said on record so far in this position is that shit shouldn't be going down in Palestine the way it is, but we will support Israel all the way.
Yeah. Oh, if it helps at all for the Venezuela thing, right after Maduro voted, he turned to some camera and they're like, people asking him, they're like, well, and he just goes like, "Long live free Palestine!" And then his opponent has publicly asked that Israel invade Venezuela to help them. So it's like, those are your options there. I hate to boil things down to these black and white singular, but if you're looking for an indication and Palestine freedom really matters to you, Maduro's your guy. Sorry.
Yeah. And
Apologize.
The popular interest in it just seems to be growing. I kind of anticipated that it would really wane in interest. People would move on, but it seems like it's really a movement that's really inspiring people all over the world, and I'm inspired by that, because I cannot think of another time that so many people. Lest maybe you look at like the World War II era, where people were all against the Axis, like they all wanted the same thing.
Eventually, by the late 30s.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm competing in pretty broad strokes here, but I'm just saying, like I can't remember another time when so much of the world was on the right side of something and really believed, like that they are being maligned in a big way. And something needs to be done about it.
Not even getting into it, but like right now, like another thing we could have talked about for a long time. Israel's like thinking about bombing Lebanon, and Lebanon's thinking about bombing them right back. And it's like, oh boy.
You know what?
Don't worry, nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens, and it won't happen this week.
Well, I don't know. I think this time, I don't know. This is just sort of my personal opinion on it, because kind of keeping my ear to the ground a little bit and seeing like, what it sounds like is a lot of people are actually fleeing, just Israelis are coming here, going to, more friendlier places. And a lot of businesses have also closed down. Now, it was last week, I think it was, I talked about the ICJ ruling, the new one. Not that they're abiding by it in the first place, but if you go down the points, there's like 7 major points. And it's basically like, Israel is illegal, take down the walls and the settlements, you make up for what you've done. Now, they're not going to abide by that, but the fact of it is that, you've never really seen the world so united against Israel, is really the thing.
It's pretty funny how all the people who claim this is our ancestral land run right the hell out as soon as things get a little scary.
Yeah, and then there's that too, and so I think that when they had this whole, even though they had the United States support and they had money and support and guns and and this kind of thing, and they kind of keep playing the victim and things like this. I think that my thought of it is, if you look at the ICJ ruling, if you look at the way people are acting publicly, saying, free Palestine, this and that, and it looks to me like they thought it was going to work much more smoothly than it has, that they were just going to be able to go right in and finish the job that they've been working on since 1948 at this point. But I think that the pushback has been so great that they weren't really anticipating it. So it's,
well, now the war can't end.
And then when they're starting to push on the other border, start to push on, mess with Iran. I dare you. Mess with Iran. Keep it up. Because now that they've got all of their borders are pissed at them at this point, because they thought they were going to do this greater Israel thing, and that it was all going to work out so great, that they were entitled to all this, the whole methodology of Zionism in the first place, that they were for no reason at all entitled to this. So when you look at what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank and pretty much all of Palestine, people are so much more hyper aware to this than I think that they've ever been across the globe, that they now, whether they're doing it because they think it's cool or whether they really do genuinely pay attention and believe in what's happening. I think that Israel bit off more than they could chew. They thought that was going to work, and I think now that they're pushing up on the other borders and there's some back and forth, going on, and some of the neighboring countries, not like right around them, but some of the neighboring countries, even, I hate to bring them into it, but Saudi Arabia was like, like, you need to quit. So I think they're not, I think some of their neighbors are really going to help make the difference here is what we're really looking at. So just, on your weekly, what's going on in Palestine, we're guessing situation. Well, as you can see, Mr. Mayor Jared has picked up his guitar because I haven't been able to, I don't do music, so I haven't been able to share any tunes in the past week. Unless, of course, you want to hear me sing like a theme song to a commercial or like something like the words that I made up to the Northern Children song or something. But there's nothing that I can really do in that way. So I'm going to jump off here and let you enjoy some much styling from Jared, who's going to treat us to something great. Thank you so much for being with us again. We are so glad to be broadcasting live to you. As always, follow us on our Twitter. We're on Twitch now, brand new account. So if you're on Twitch, we would love to have you follow us there. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube. So thanks so much for joining us. Thank you for talking to us in the chat. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week with whatever horrible topics are going on in the world that we can pull our hair out about together. So take care, everyone, and be safe. Bye-bye.
I don't think I did this song 3 weeks ago, but maybe I did. So potential apology for a repeat. This is Old Time Riverman by John Hartford. Where does an old-time riverman go after he's passed away? Does the soul still keep a watch on the deep for the rest of his river days? Does he then come back as a channel cat or a wasp that light on the wheel? Birds that fly through the summer sky, or the fish swimming under the keel? Where does an old-time pilot go after he's stood his last watch? Does he fall by the ear, the man who steers, saying, hold her on that notch? There's a gentle sneeze in the river breeze, saying, son, I'm going to bed. And they light their pipes and go off in the night. Or was it fireflies instead? Where does an old-time engineer go after he's cooled down? Gone up the hill to never come back on the quiet side of town. Does his soul live on in the engine song while the striker checks the gears? Is he still afloat on an old steamboat after he's gone